Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. I wasn't supposed to be there. I mean, technically I was invited. My name was on the menu card, right between the crab cakes and the cursed creme brulee. But the way everyone looked at me, you'd think I'd wandered in from the street, clutching my ring box like a lost puppy. They were her people, her world. Polished, opinionated, loud. I could practically hear the collective sound of credit cards swiping. They wore confidence like cologne. I wore the wrong shoes and a tie that kept tilting left no matter how many times I adjusted it. And she, Marin, was in the center of it all, laughing like nothing in the world could ever touch her. The woman I was supposed to marry in 4 months. The woman who told me, just last night, that I made her feel safe. Let me tell you what safe apparently means to some people. Predictable, easy to mock, convenient for clout. You know what the worst part is? I actually rehearsed a small speech for that night. Something short, something grateful. I was going to thank her parents for being warm to me, despite thinking my job was cute. I was going to tell her childhood best friend Ellie that I admired how fiercely she protected Marin, even though she clearly hated me. I was even going to thank Marin for making room for me in a life that looked nothing like mine. But I never gave that speech, because Marin gave hers first. It started harmless. She stood up, tapped her glass, and smiled. Everyone smiled back. She looked amazing, a crimson dress, low back, that gold bracelet I gave her for her promotion. She looked like someone worth ruining your life for. Then she opened her mouth. I just want to say how grateful I am that everyone could be here to celebrate. Well, us. Even if Nolan's idea of a celebration is watching a 3-hour documentary about abandoned oil rigs. Laughter. I smiled tight-lipped. He's not exactly a thrill seeker, unless you count coupon stacking. But hey, stability is sexy, right? More laughter. Someone said, preach. She kept going. He's the kind of guy who triple checks if the stove is off before we go out, and I love that for me. I get to be the wild one, and he reminds me to drink water. The room was cracking up. I wasn't, because I knew exactly what this was. I wasn't the partner. I was the punchline. In all seriousness, she said, placing a hand on my shoulder. I'm marrying Nolan because I know he'd never leave. Not even if I told him I kissed someone else once. He's just built different. There it was. A strange silence fell across the table, like the air got sucked out. I blinked. Slowly. Kissed someone else once. I asked not loud. Just enough. She froze. Half a smirk still on her lips. It was a joke, babe. No one laughed. I set my fork down. The sound was louder than I expected. It echoed. I stood up. Pulled the ring box from my jacket pocket. The same one I had carried around for weeks before proposing in that rainy parking lot where we first argued about politics. I placed the box on her plate. It made a soft thud on the china. I hope you find someone who thinks that kind of joke is funny, I said. And I walked out. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just done. The door clicked behind me. And for the first time in 3 years, I exhaled without permission. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed constantly on the passenger seat, but I couldn't bring myself to look at it. I already knew who it was. I just didn't know which version of her I'd get, the apologetic one or the furious one. When I finally checked, it wasn't just Marin. It was everyone. Her mother sent a single text. We need to talk. Her friend Ellie wrote. What the hell was that? Someone I barely knew DM'd me on Instagram with a skull emoji and wild night. Marin, though, Marin sent nothing at first. That silence felt heavier than yelling. I drove to my brother's place and slept on his couch, shoes still on, jacket bunched under my head. I didn't dream. I just sank into this thick, gray nothing. The next morning, my phone exploded. Marin had sent 14 messages in a row. They bounced between tones so fast it made my chest tighten. First confusion, then anger, then sarcasm, then something that looked suspiciously like panic. She said I embarrassed her. She said I could have waited. She said I misread the room. The one that stuck with me was the last message. You knew I was joking. You always take things too personally. That was when it hit me. Not the party. Not the joke. Not even the ring on the plate. It was the certainty in that sentence. The absolute confidence that my feelings were an inconvenience, not a warning sign. I typed out a response. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Eventually, I sent only this. I didn't misread the room. I finally read you. She didn't reply for hours. Then she showed up, unannounced, standing outside my brother's apartment with red eyes and perfect posture, like she'd practiced being devastated in the mirror. Neighbors slowed down as they passed, pretending not to stare. Maren hated scenes. I knew that, which meant this was intentional. She told me we needed to talk. I told her I wasn't ready. She laughed, actually laughed, and said, "You don't get to walk away like this." That's when I realized something terrifying. She didn't think this was over. And that scared me more than the party ever did. It had been 3 days since I walked out of that dinner, and I hadn't seen Maren since the moment I placed the ring on her plate. Until now. She was standing outside my brother's apartment building in the rain, hair pinned back, eyes a little swollen, but not in that movie star crying kind of way. More like someone who hadn't slept properly and was trying really, really hard not to look desperate. She asked to come inside. I said no. She smiled and said, "You're being dramatic." I said, "You made me a joke in front of 40 people. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I thought that would be the end of it. But later that night, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in months. Rena, one of Maren's co-workers. We weren't close, but she was always kind. Always awkward around Maren. I never thought much of it. She asked if I had a minute. I said sure. Her voice was low, shaky. She asked if I remembered that conference Maren went to in Chicago back in June. Of course I did. Maren came back with a bunch of photos, a coffee mug from the airport, and a slightly different way of kissing me. I noticed, but chalked it up to travel. I even joked that she smelled like hotel shampoo for a week. She'd laughed. Told me I was paranoid. Well, apparently not paranoid enough. Rena told me she wasn't supposed to say anything, but that she couldn't stay quiet anymore. Maren didn't go alone. She went with the team, yes, but more specifically, she spent most of the trip with one of the execs. A guy named Tyler. I'd heard the name before. Vaguely. The way Maren talked about work, it was all code names and nicknames, and you wouldn't know him as. But Rena knew. She said she saw them together. At the hotel bar. In the lobby. Leaving together. Coming back. Not together. At first, she thought it was innocent. Then she heard Maren say something on the last night that she couldn't forget. Something she'd apparently said while tipsy, laughing with another coworker. Tyler's got that chaotic energy. Nolan's sweet, but boring. It's like comparing tequila to warm milk. I had to sit down. I remembered how Maren looked at me the day she got back from that trip. Tired. Giddy. A little too affectionate, like she was trying to overcompensate. I asked if anything crazy happened. She said, "Nothing worth remembering." I believed her. Now here I was, being told by a near stranger that my fiancé may have emotionally, and maybe physically, checked out months ago, and I'd been the last to know. Again. But what really messed me up? Rena ended the call by saying, "I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I figured it out too late." Too late for what? Too late for the wedding? Or too late for me to still believe that any of it, was real? I didn't cry that night. I just sat there, staring at a blank TV screen, replaying 100 little things that never made sense. Her phone always face down. The weekend strategy meetings, with no photos, the sudden defensiveness when I asked harmless questions. And somewhere in that dark room, I made a quiet promise to myself. I was going to find out the whole truth, even if it ruined me. The next day, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I called Tyler. Yeah, that Tyler. I didn't plan it. I wasn't looking for a fight. I just needed to hear his voice. Maybe to confirm something I already knew. Maybe to catch a lie in real time. I found his number buried in an old guest list Maren had sent me months ago. Some work event where she insisted I didn't need to come because it would be boring corporate talk. Right. I called him around noon. He answered on the second ring like he'd been expecting someone, but probably not me. "Nolan," he said, cautious. I didn't say anything at first. I just let the silence sit. Then I asked, "Did you sleep with her?" No build-up. No pleasantries. Just the question that had been drilling into my skull for 3 days straight. He didn't deny it. He didn't even sound surprised. Just said, "Man, this isn't how I wanted it to go down." Not no. Not what are you talking about? Just that. I could feel my fingers gripping the phone tighter. I didn't yell. I just asked how long. He sighed. That kind of long, regret-soaked sigh that people use when they're trying to paint themselves as complicated instead of guilty. He said, "Chicago was the first time. But she said things were complicated with you. That you were already pulling away." I almost laughed. Me? Pulling away? I was the one who handpicked the stupid wedding playlist. I was the one who made a private Pinterest board to plan our honeymoon. I was the one who still texted her goodnight, even when she was in the same apartment. You know what the worst part is? I asked him. He was quiet. I said, "You thought I'd never find out. That's the kind of guy I've been to her, right? Predictable, passive, quiet." Another silence. Then he mumbled something that sounded like, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I hung up, and for the first time, it felt like I had stepped outside of the story they'd been writing behind my back. I wasn't the quiet, clueless fiancé anymore. I was something else, and I wasn't done. It took me 2 days to figure out how I wanted to confront her. Not because I was afraid, but because I was tired of being predictable, tired of making things easier for her, tired of swallowing the truth just to keep the peace. This time, I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to let her explain herself while knowing I already had all the answers. And then I'd watch her try to lie her way out. She texted again Sunday morning. "Can we please meet somewhere? Just to talk. I miss you." I told her I'd come by the apartment later. That's all. No emoji. No softness. Just a sentence that left her guessing. When I walked in, the place was spotless. Candles burning, her favorite jazz playlist humming softly in the background. She was wearing that oversized sweater I used to compliment. The one she only wore when she wanted to look effortlessly real. Her hair was down. No makeup, or at least it looked like it. Everything about her screamed manipulation wrapped in comfort. She smiled like she hadn't made me a national joke. "Hi," she said gently, almost whispering it. I nodded, took off my jacket, sat down on the armrest of the couch. I didn't say a word. She stood in front of me, fingers nervously pulling at the hem of her sleeve. "I didn't mean for the dinner to go that way," she began. "I was trying to be funny. I thought you'd laugh with me like we always do." I tilted my head. "You called me warm milk in front of everyone." She looked down. It was a bad joke. I didn't respond. Just let the silence stretch again. Then she said something that flipped a switch in me. "You walking out made it seem worse than it was." There it was. Me walking out. Me making it worse. I stood up slowly, walked over to the drawer where she kept a box of wedding planning stuff, seating charts, fabric swatches, a printed out email from a bakery we never got around to booking. I opened the box, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and tossed it onto the coffee table between us. It was a printout of my call log with Tyler's name highlighted. I had written the time and date next to it, underlined it in red. Her face went pale. "You didn't." "I did," I said calmly. "I called him. He answered. He talked." She opened her mouth to defend herself, but no sound came out. "I know about Chicago," I added. "And not just Chicago." That part was a bluff. I didn't know about anything beyond Chicago. But the way her expression cracked in real time, that told me everything I needed. Was it worth it? I asked, not because I wanted an answer, but because I wanted her to feel the weight of the question. Marin's eyes welled up. "It wasn't serious. It was a mistake. I didn't plan any of this, Nolan. You have to believe me." "You didn't plan to cheat," I said. "But you did plan to keep it secret. You planned to let me marry you anyway. You planned to stand in front of our friends and family and smile like none of it ever happened. You planned that." She sat down, suddenly deflated. "I was scared to lose you." I almost laughed. "No, Marin. You were scared to lose what I did for you. Stability. Loyalty. Someone who stayed quiet while you played reckless." There was another long pause. Then she whispered, "What happens now?" I walked to the door, grabbed my jacket, looked back one last time and said, "Now, you get to sit with the truth for once. Alone." And I left. But I wasn't finished. I had one more person to talk to, and they were about to blow this entire thing wide open. I thought that would be it. Confrontation, closure, walk away with whatever dignity I had left. But the universe wasn't done kicking me around just yet. Later that night, I got a DM from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Carter. He was Marin's ex, the one she always described as the chaotic chapter one closed long ago. She once told me he was the reason she had trust issues, that he'd cheated on her, ghosted her, lied to her face. I had built my opinion of him entirely from her side of the story. Unstable, emotionally manipulative, unreliable. So why was he messaging me? His first words were, "I'm not doing this to stir the pot. You deserve to know what really happened." That alone made my pulse spike. We met at a 24-hour diner near my apartment. I didn't want to, but curiosity got the better of me. He looked tired, older than I remembered from photos Marin had shown me during her rants. He didn't waste time. He told me Maren had cheated on him, not the other way around. He said she rewrote the whole breakup to make herself the victim, that she told all their friends he was emotionally abusive, when in reality, she had been distant, cold, and had already started seeing someone else behind his back. He said he didn't fight the narrative because by the time he realized what she was doing, she had already poisoned the well. I didn't want to believe him. It felt like too much. But then he pulled out his phone, opened a cloud folder, and showed me screenshots of old texts, things Maren had sent him while they were still together, and already planning drinks after work with someone named Adam. The timestamps didn't lie. The tone didn't either. There was a familiar pattern in her messages, vague flirtation, careful deflection, and then blame shifting the moment things got real. I'd seen it before. Recently. To me. I stared at the screen in silence. It wasn't just about me anymore. This was who she'd always been. Carter looked me in the eye and said, "She's not evil. She's just never had to deal with the truth. She jumps from person to person before anyone can hold up a mirror." I nodded slowly, something heavy sinking into my chest. I wasn't just her next chapter. I was her pattern. And now I needed to decide if I was going to let her rewrite the ending. After that meeting with Carter, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because everything suddenly made too much sense. It was like my brain was playing catch up with all the little red flags I'd ignored for 3 years. The late nights. The evasive answers. "You're overthinking again, babe," every time I asked a basic question. I realized something else too. She was going to spin this breakup the same way she spun every other one. I could already see the posts forming in my head. A carefully filtered photo of her looking sad but beautiful. A vague caption like, "Sometimes love just isn't enough." Maybe a carousel of us smiling from last summer to really stir up sympathy. People would comment, "You deserve better," and she'd reply with a broken heart emoji. No, not this time. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the truth to be louder than her version of it. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I sent out a message. Not to everyone. Just to the people who were at that dinner. The ones who laughed at her jokes. The ones who still followed us on social media, commented under our engagement photos, called us goals. I wrote, "You were all there when Maren made me the punchline." I didn't say much then, but I want to now. That night wasn't the beginning. It was the end of a lot of silence. She cheated. Not once. Not accidentally. And not years ago. I gave her a chance to be honest. She chose to perform instead. I'm not asking you to pick sides. Just don't let her paint herself as the one who got hurt. Not this time. That was it. No anger. No screenshots. No names. Just the truth. Clear, simple, final. I didn't expect much to come from it. But then people started replying. Some were stunned. A few apologized for laughing. One even said, "Honestly, I thought something was off when she made that milk and tequila comment." Then someone sent me a screenshot. Maren had posted a story, a close-up of her hand, still wearing the ring, captioned, "Healing is messy. Love is complicated." The comment section was full of hearts and stay strong messages. But not long after my message made the rounds, the story vanished. And she went silent. No posts. No texts. No more calls. It was the first time in years I felt like I wasn't shouting into a void, waiting to be believed. She had always counted on people taking her side before she ever had to defend it. But this time I took that power back. And I still wasn't done. Because there was one more person who deserved to hear everything. Someone who had no idea what their daughter was really capable of. A week passed before I made the call. I had drafted the message a dozen times, deleted it just as many. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, I thought you should know your daughter cheated on me, humiliated me, and lied to everyone, including you." But Maren's mom, Denise, had always been kind to me. During holidays, she made a point of asking about my work, even when everyone else just politely nodded through my explanations. She once pulled me aside and said, "I'm glad she found someone steady, someone who listens." I guess she never realized her daughter didn't care much for either of those things. When she picked up the phone, she sounded surprised but not unfriendly. "Nolan," she said, "are you okay?" I took a breath and told her everything. Not in a bitter, angry way, just honestly. The party, the cheating, the phone call with Tyler. The fake narrative Maren was already starting to craft. Denise didn't interrupt. She didn't defend her daughter. She just listened, really listened, in a way Maren never had. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I wondered why she was so quick to tell me it was your fault. I felt something loosen in my chest. She thanked me for calling, apologized, though she didn't have to, and said she hoped I wouldn't let this ruin the way I saw love. That part hit me harder than I expected. And maybe that's the strange beauty of it. The healing didn't come from calling her out or getting the last word. It came from the quiet things. The messages from friends who said they were proud of me. The relief I felt waking up without checking my phone for her mood. The way my apartment felt mine again, not like a stage set for someone else's fantasy. I returned the ring to the jeweler. Got back most of what I paid. I used some of that money to book a trip I had always wanted to take alone, Scotland. Just me, some hiking boots, and a list of things I'd postponed because I was always adjusting to someone else's gravity. A few weeks later, I was sitting on a mossy rock overlooking a lake that didn't look real, sipping terrible instant coffee from a thermos, and I realized I felt peaceful. Not happy, not yet, but still, solid. Like I was building something real this time, from the ground up, with no audience, no performance, and no fear that the person next to me would turn my quiet love into a joke. I don't hate Marin. I pity her. Because someday, she might finally stop running, look around, and realize there's no one left who believes the version of her she's been selling. As for me, I'm moving forward. I've started seeing someone, slowly, cautiously. Someone who listens. Someone who doesn't perform. Someone who actually likes almond milk and documentaries about abandoned oil rigs. And for once, I don't feel like I'm too much. I just feel enough. Please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all.